Pfizer, they have made everybody happy. Have we medically reached the end of the COVID tunnel? Has science triumphed? Or it's too early to start doing cartwheels, because there is still a lot of hard work which needs to be done on efficacy, on side effects, on distribution, and how will this vaccine be produced? We are looking at 7 billion people, 7 billion vaccine dosages. Can they be produced? The perfect man to answer some very difficult questions today, and we're going to put a very dear friend of mine, Dr. Pratit Samdani, on the spotlight. Good morning, doctor. I'm sure usually these days your day does not start with good news, but for a change, there is a lot of good news in the world. Pfizer is saying that we've discovered the vaccine with 90% efficacy. How should we read into the headline?
Good morning, Nicholas. Thank you for having me here. Well, it's always good news and a happy day when we begin our day listening to you, whether it's vaccination or the markets. So yes, this breakthrough news of Pfizer claiming 90% efficacy is certainly a positive news, in a sense that at the end of the tunnel, we see some light. Now, whether we've reached that light or we've reached the end of the tunnel is a question to be answered. So if I may tell you something about this vaccine. So what did Pfizer declare? They declared an efficacy of more than 90%. If I may proceed, I may just tell you what this study included and was designed. They actually have taken it's an mRNA vaccine. Just to explain people what an mRNA vaccine, we can have it in the next 10 minutes. On July the 27th, they started recruiting people for this vaccine, and they have recruited about 43,530 odd people. The aim was to give 2 shots of the vaccine, one on day 0. We call day 0 as the first day the dose of the vaccine has been given. And second was on day 21. That means 3 weeks from the first day of the vaccine that was given. The second dose as of now has been given to about 38,955 people already. When they started deciding when to declare interim results, they decided that after 7 days of the second dose of the vaccine, they would start counting people who actually got infected. Now, this is not easy for people to understand. This is a blinded study. That means there are 2 arms of the study. One arm, a person gets the actual vaccine, and the other arm, the person gets what we call as a placebo. That means it has nothing to do with a vaccine. It's just an injection which contains some material which has no antibody production ability or antigenic property ability to enter the body. They declared this result yesterday so initially they said we'll declare the results when we get to 32 people who get infected. Then the committee reviewed, and they said, no, we should do it when at least 64 people come and get infected. However, by the time the committee sat and the drug monitoring system happened, they realized that 94 people had already got infected, and that's how they released the data. What does this mean, 90% efficacy? It means that 94 people out of the total number of people who were given a jab or an injection, whether it's placebo or the actual vaccine, got infected after 7 days of the second dose. That means if we say and if we hear and if we believe that the claim of 90% is true, almost only 8 out of 94 people who actually received the injection got infected with the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So that's what this meaning is. And the design of the study is pretty good. It's a global study, so it's held in multiple countries. There are 42% of the people who are globally involved. That means they're not one ethnicity or one breed. And 30% of the people who are involved in America actually come from varied ethnic backgrounds. That means they could be Hispanics, they could be Blacks, they could be Caucasians, they're Asians. So they've taken a mixed population. They also took people who were more than 12 years of age who were included in the study. What was more striking to me was they included people who also had chronic illnesses like hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV, who are a part of this study. So that's an interesting part. So if you ask me, Nikunj, what does the result tell us? I think results are stellar. The numbers are too small. The final result will only come after they complete 164 subjects who turn out to be positive.
Okay, to ask a very simple question, Dr. Samdani, when will, if all goes as per normal timeline, when do you think mass production will start? And is the world prepared to manufacture this kind of a complicated vaccine? Because in your words, like you said, this is very different. This is genetic engineering at its best. Is the world prepared to produce this?
Only an analyst and a smart analyst like you can ask such a deep question. A great question. So Pfizer claims to produce 50 billion doses by the year end, and they claim to produce a total 1.2 billion doses in the next year. So 50 million now and 1.2 billion next year. The real challenge of this vaccine is one, the efficacy. That means, does it remain effective in your body? The duration of the efficacy, how long do the antibodies remain? Whether there are side effects, and if there are side effects, there are serious adverse effects or just minor side effects. And also, the most important thing that you asked is about transportation of this vaccine. So if I may to tell you, this vaccine at this moment needs to be shipped at a temperature and stored at a temperature of minus 94 degrees Fahrenheit, that is about minus 70 degrees centigrade. And that's a huge challenge, especially when you have a global transportation involved. That means you need a fantastic cold storage system, not only from transportation out of the factory, but also transportation within the country that the vaccines are going to. That's going to be a big challenge, because if you don't maintain the cold storage, the efficacy of the vaccine will certainly drop and be useless. When they discovered this vaccine, the body said that we need 50% efficacy. And Pfizer, that's why, is all happy, because they've got a 90% efficacy. How does this vaccine work? So this is a messenger mRNA vaccine, a messenger mRNA. If I may tell you, there is another company that's making the messenger mRNA vaccine, and that's the Moderna vaccine. Jennifer Haller was the first person who actually got this vaccine about 6 months ago. And both are based on the same technology. What does it do? So they have instructions to make the proteins inside the body. So the human cells then churn out this mRNA to build, maintain, and repair things inside the cells. When this is given, another part of this cell actually reads this mRNA. And when they read this mRNA, they start making building blocks called amino acids within the body. Amino acids, as we know, are simple proteins. The aim of this designer mRNA is that it compels all the cells to produce proteins that mimic those that are found in the virus. So the aim is to give this vaccine, mimic the proteins that are actually found on the virus, and we typically call these spike proteins that are found on this SARS-CoV-2 virus. So in the SARS-CoV-2 mRNA, it contains a great recipe for proteins. It helps to produce infected cells. And once this is injected, this reads this mRNA and uses it as a template to make viral proteins. Once these proteins are actually triggered or injected, the immune system then takes over and leads to what we commonly use nowadays as an antibody production. So it produces antibodies. Now, what happens when you get antibodies? The person then, when gets infected or has the liability or a chance of getting exposed to SARS-CoV-2, these antibodies reads and recognizes these proteins on the mRNA inside the body and triggers an immune system response and destroys the virus. That's how this virus vaccine is going to work.
Well, that is Samdani. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for wonderfully breaking it down so that our audience can really understand A, the medical side, B, the importance of vaccine, and C, how it could be distributed. We'll take a break. it's going to be a good day of trade, and it's going to be a good day of trade not because of what we've heard from Pfizer, but in general markets have been in a rally mode. It's just one of those patches in the market where heads have been, tails even have been. So it doesn't matter what the news is or what the news has been, markets are overreacting to good news, ignoring bad news. Haven't we seen that last week when there was chaos in and around US presidential election? Markets still rallied. So that's markets for you. We are right now dominated by optimism, liquidity, and a belief that things will get better. So bulls right now in a driving seat, but which are the stocks to buy when bulls are in a driving seat? More on that when we come back.